Hey everyone, I'm Annie Dickerson, and on behalf of the entire Goodegg Investments team, I wanted to welcome you to this episode of the Life and Money Show, the show where we talk about everything from investing to financial freedom to parenting, traveling, creating a life by design, and everything in between. I'm here with my amazing co-host, Susan Elliott. Susan,
Hello.
Start by sharing with everybody a little bit about what we're going to talk about today.
Well, we have Kelsa Dickey on today, and she is a renowned financial coach in that she has started her own financial coaching business, and now she actually teaches people also how to be financial coaches. So she's been in this since before the words financial and coach were put together into one title. And I was drawn to Kelsa, and all of her work because of the perspective she takes as opposed to a financial advisor. So we do talk a lot about that. What is a coach versus an advisor when it comes to your finances? And I think because in my own work around building my wealth, around my money mindsets, and all of these things that are impacting that, it's like this big holistic sphere that we talk about a lot on this podcast. And so it isn't just the accounting decisions. It isn't just the numbers. And I was really drawn to financial coaching as an avenue to be able to tease all that apart because it takes into perspective a little bit more broad but also giving you the very tactical things that you need to be able to make your goals a reality. So we talked to Kelsa a lot about how that all works with financial coaching, about what she does, how she feels like people at every stage in their life journey in money can really benefit from financial coaching, and just the way that we perceive our money.
Yeah. So if you're in a place where you're trying to wrap your arms around your money situation or what to do with your money, how to get started investing, this is going to be a great conversation for you. Now, before we dive in, one quick thing, which is if you are at the sort of the beginning of your investing journey specific to real estate, and you're not quite sure which direction to go, you're not sure if you should buy a rental property, or if you do already have a rental property, you're not sure if you should keep it or you should sell it, get involved in passive investing or what that's all about. Just like, we talk about with Kelsa, it can be hard to tease apart all of your questions and all of your thoughts and get the right resources. So what we've done is we've put together all of our wisdom and our resources into one simple page. It's our Start Here page on our website. And it'll walk you through everything from what is financial freedom and how do you retire early? Can you do it? To how to invest with your 401k. What is passive investing? Is it right for you? What are the risks? What's an accredited investor? We cover it all. Just go to goodegginvestments.com/start. All right. With that, let's go ahead and dive into our conversation with Kelsa Dickey. Kelsa, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
We're thrilled to have you here. You've accomplished so much. I'm sure all the people listening to this show are going to be super impressed with everything that you've done. You're a founder, you're a CEO, you're an author, you're a podcaster. We definitely want to know how you do it all. But before we get there, give us some of the highlights of your story. How did you get to this point? What led you down this path toward financial coaching and what you do now?
Yeah, so I started as a financial coach 15 years ago now, and I joke that I sort of like made it up because 15 years ago, there really wasn't anybody called a financial coach at the time. I actually started as a financial advisor for 3 years. And the part of money that I really loved helping people with was the part, like somebody would come in with debt and I'd be like, yes, let's tackle that. I can't wait. Let's roll up our sleeves. But of course, this was about 20 years ago and there was no way to get paid as a financial advisor back in the day. It was all commission-based structures and that sort of thing. So fee-based planning really wasn't a thing. So I would help the people with debt or who really didn't have a handle on their money. And I would love it. I would love to spend all the time doing that, but wasn't getting paid for it. And so that's when I decided to become a financial coach. But really sort of my love for money came just from experiencing watching my parents and what they experienced growing up. Annie, I think it was a few episodes ago, you were talking about how you grew up and you had sort of two different perspectives growing up. And I was listening to that and I was like, oh my God, the same is true for me. my parents were divorced, and my mom really was very stressed with money, but it was because she didn't really have any of it. So she had a good job, but she was raising 3 girls on her own. There was just more money going out than what was coming in. And I remember watching her sit there for hours sometimes at our dining room table, just trying to manage her money. So it wasn't for lack of trying. She would have a legal pad and a calculator and a stack of opened mail and a stack of unopened mail. And she was just, trying to figure out, like, where's it going? What am I doing? How am I juggling it? And then there was my dad, who had a really high income and sort of like no care in the world and had a lot of discretionary money and that sort of thing, but was also stressed about money. But it was for a very different reason. It was sort of like the very typical, very standard keeping up with the Joneses sort of mentality that I witnessed, so had a lot of very nice things, paid for, was able to afford a lot of nice things, but I almost feel like didn't really appreciate his money, didn't feel secure, I would say, or solid with his money. So also experienced a lot of stress and would complain about money at the exact same time. So I heard a lot of complaining about money growing up, but for two very different reasons. And it was like, it doesn't matter if you have a lot of it or a little of it, like money can cause stress is sort of the takeaway that I learned really young. And so that's when a senior in college, high school, a guidance counselor said, "What do you want to do when you're older?" And I said, "I want to help people with their money." And so that's when he said, "You should become a financial advisor." And I was like, okay, became a financial advisor, practiced for a few years, really enjoyed sitting and talking about money. That's something that I feel like I've always enjoyed. I've always loved sort of the analytical, but also the creative nature of money. I don't think it's as analytical sometimes as what people want it to be. I actually think there's a whole other side of it. And I do think, thankfully, I think women, we tend to bring that element to money over the last 2 decades, especially. It's definitely taken hold a little bit better. And I love that. I think it's very needed. And so then I became a financial coach. And I remember thinking when I first started that I was just going to be helping people with budgeting or paying off debt. And it has become something so much more than that. And what I realized is it doesn't really matter where you're starting from. Money is a lifelong journey. So wherever you're starting from, that's just one skill set you need to learn. So you need to learn how to sort of manage your money or get out of debt, let's say, if you have it, or save for a short-term goal or a whammy if you're not ready for that. And then once you do that, you're just on to the next goal, right? And the next stage and sort of the next big endeavor. And so whether it's launching a business or paying down debt or buying a house or investing in real estate, right? Like each one of these requires a new skill set. And so money is a lifelong journey. So some of my clients have worked with me for years and they're really good at managing their money day by day, week by week these days, right? So they don't need me for that anymore, but they love just having a person that they can meet with a few times a year, say, here's what I got coming up. Help me make sure I'm going to navigate it really smart financially, right? Like, let me just talk through it. They do better sort of verbally processing life with somebody. And so it's sort of equal parts aspirational and analytical and practical, right? So we're going to spend some time sort of talking about the future. What do you want? What are you trying to build in your life? But then we're going to get really strategic and really practical. And we're going to crunch all the numbers and sort of create a plan to make sure you're using your money to create that goal.
Awesome. I love what you said about the lifelong process of this, because I think that I've come upon money issues in my past and felt like I worked through them. And you just want to like cross it off the list and say like, I've dealt with that. But then it kind of manifests in new forms depending on where you're at in your different stages of life. And there's like underlying psychological things happening with money and the creative nature of how we think about money and how we do that. And it seems like that's a little bit more along the coaching veins. Can you help us understand a little bit more about like the difference between what you get with a financial advisor versus what you get with a financial coach?
Yeah, I would say one of the things to think about is the similarity first. The similarity is that we all talk about money, right? It's just the different part of money that we talk about. And there's a few different ways of thinking about that. So the timeline is part of the difference. So I might be looking at sort of where does the client want to go in the next 3 to 5 years? Yes, we're going to talk about more long-term than that, but it might be more from a vision standpoint, sort of just getting that as sort of our North Star or our compass, if you will. But we're going to really be thinking strategically about the next 3 to 5 years. The money you have sort of coming in and out today, what are you doing with it? And how can we make sure you're ready for those things that are coming up? Where a financial advisor is probably going to be a little bit more long-term to the short term, right? So there is a little bit of overlap there, but it's like, let's really plan for your future. Let's look for a time when maybe you aren't working your 9 to 5 and you need an income still. How are we making sure that you're ready for that? They're going to be much more equipped to do long-term analysis, I would say, as far as projections from whatever those real estate or stock market or whatever type of investments the person has. Mitigating risk, and I would also say protecting a person's assets, is definitely the job of a financial advisor compared to a financial coach. So that's the timeline part of it. And then I would say, really, what part of money is the difference? So as a financial coach, I'm really looking at the money flowing in and out of your checking account and savings accounts, right? So today's money, what are you doing with it? Once the money comes into your checking account, how do you know if you should save it or spend it or invest it? So how are we balancing all of those things in the real time, short term nature of things? And again, the advisor might have more to do with your investments, your assets, your liabilities, your net worth type of items, your insurance, making sure you're protected, that sort of thing. So all very important, all very, very needed. So typically what we say is a person, you need to have your whole sort of rock star financial team built out. So, a financial coach to help you with today's money, making sure that you can find the money that your advisor wants you to be putting away. So, and then an advisor, and then an accountant, oftentimes, right? Maybe a really solid insurance agent. I think we're all needed. So typically an advisor will tell one of my clients, like, you need this much to save for retirement, and my job is to sort of help the client find that money in a balanced way. So a lot of the times a person will think, well, I don't have that. So they don't even do anything, right? So if I don't have $1,000 a month to invest, so then why bother? Sort of mentality can creep in. And so my job is to say, well, we can find 200 of it. And then in a couple of months, let's revisit it and see if we can't find a little bit more. And then we can find a little bit more. And, like that kind of thing. I equate financial coaching to sort of that as a personal trainer. So everybody kind of knows that they should maybe go to the gym, or you might even know what you should do in the gym. Some people know that, but your coach or your trainer will help you add weight, right? Or do one more rep, or get stronger faster, right? Or avoid making mistakes that injure yourself and that sort of thing. We do the same thing as financial coaches, just with money. So I'm going to encourage you to save just a little bit more, or challenge you to pay a little bit more towards your debt, or drive your income just a little bit more, and avoid some of the mistakes like the spending decisions that might, some of those spending triggers, those temptations, that sort of thing that might injure you financially. It's really the same thing, financial coaching and sort of personal training in the here and now.
Wow. I like that. I like that there's the tactical aspect in what you do and the day-to-day, and comparing it with a trainer. I mean, I know that that's probably where you got your idea to start Fiscal Fitness, your financial coaching firm in Phoenix. I loved that comparison. I also enjoy tackling physical goals, and I find that the parallel to that, to doing one more rep, one more mile, is really also very, very aligned with my financial goals too. And I heard you start to talk about these like psychological barriers that we have too, where I loved how, I need to invest $1,000 a month. I remember seeing a financial advisor come to my firm when I used to be an engineer and saying, you need to save 10%, 20% to be able to, in the calculator, get here. And I was just like, there's no way. I can barely make ends meet now with where we're living and having a young family. And you do just resort to saying, well, I'll just work forever, as ridiculous as that sounds now. So talk to us a little bit more about those psychological barriers that you see with individuals, even those who have wealth, but maybe struggle with spending or investing it. And how do you approach these kinds of anxieties in your coaching?
Yeah, I would say that you actually hit the nail on the head, Susan, with one of them, which is that progress over perfection. So it doesn't matter if you're just starting to invest, or if you've been investing for a while, but the goal you have is maybe to retire 10 years earlier than you were really thinking. Like maybe they made a big change at your job, let's say, and you went from loving it to sort of like being miserable every day. And you're now all of a sudden like, you know what, this feels more urgent to me. And so now my goal is a lot faster. So I need to take it up a notch. The mindset sort of barrier that some people face is that like they can't see how they're going to do all of it right away. So they don't think that they should do any of it, right? We're really progress over perfection, that whatever I can do today, let me at least start, right? Let me at least do something. And then a month later, I'm going to just do a little bit more. And a month later, I'm going to do a little bit more. And eventually you will get there. It's one of those things where starting is one of the best things you can do, even if you don't have sort of like the entire plan figured out. And, I'm a financial person. I love planning. I love sort of analyzing and calculating things. And I love when things balance and that sort of thing. But I do think one of the things that my job is oftentimes is to show a client, like, we can't see how this entire thing is going to play out perfectly, right? Like we can't see how this is exactly going to happen based on your income today, based on the debt you have today or the amount you have to put towards savings or your current spending and those types of things. But also things change, right? And if we can get started today, in just a few months, our goals change, our priorities change, what we want out of our life and out of our spending changes, and we'll be able to do more in a little bit. And sometimes it's like, let's get started now. So that's definitely the first barrier, is that starting and doing something is better than nothing. Absolutely, no matter where you're at with your goal. The other thing I would say is a big barrier, and this is absolutely true for wealthy individuals, specifically people with really high incomes, is this idea that you have to know where every dollar goes in order to be good with money, or that managing your money in some way is the same as tracking every dollar. So what happens is a lot of people are like, I have plenty of spending money. I shouldn't have to spend time tracking every dollar, right? And I do sort of agree with that. It really depends on sort of how tight your budget is and the depth of detail you care about as an individual. And everybody's a little different, right? So one thing that I pride myself on is helping a person manage their money in a way that is going to be best for them, and really embracing their own natural talents and skill sets. So for example, some people really thrive with specificity. The more detail, the better, right? Like it gives them things to control. They really like compartmentalization, for example, like it really helps their brain, right? To see things clearly. And other people are easily overwhelmed with too much specificity and too much detail. It's like, I now am not bought into this at all, because I'm just overwhelmed by the level of complexity. So for me, it's like, for a lot of people, when it comes to managing your money, if you don't have to know where every single dollar goes, it's okay to not know where every single dollar goes. What I would recommend, that the number I want you to know, is your financial progress number. How much are you putting towards your goals? How much are you putting towards the things that are most important to you? Get really specific on those numbers. And the other things, we can put systems in place that you do have some guardrails, right? So that you're not just going too off the wall, and it's then violating the goals that you have for yourself or the things that you want for your future, but where you don't have to obsess over every little dollar, because a lot of people are not going to want to do that. But again, you will hear this all the time, get spread everywhere, which is like, people who are good with their money know where every dollar goes. I don't believe that. I really don't. So, I manage my money very well. We achieve our goals. We are very good financially as a family and that sort of thing. And I couldn't tell you last month how much I spent on groceries or eating out, because we sort of just we have a spending account. We know how much is in there. During the week, we use our debit card for it and we feel totally fine about it. And as long as that money is being spent and we're not going over, we're good. It doesn't matter if it went to eating out or gas, or if I bought something for my kids at Target or something like that. It's like, I know that this amount that I have doesn't harm my ability to put money towards my future and towards my goals. And it feels very balanced for me. And now, again, some people want that and some people don't. But I do think for a lot of people who have a cushion, don't adopt this mindset that you have to know where every dollar goes in order to be good with your money. You can be good with your money without sort of that obsession, if you will. And then the last thing I will say, the last sort of mental barrier, I hear this a lot, is people who say, well, I didn't learn this growing up. My parents didn't teach this to me. And I do think for a lot of us, that is true, I will say. So it's not to say that you shouldn't say that if it's true. It's sort of what people do, allow that to do to their belief system on what they're capable of financially because of that, right? And one thing I like people to know is that I have a degree in finance. I have a master's in accounting. So I legitimately learned this stuff. You could say that I actually learned this stuff, paid a pretty penny to learn it. And the really everyday, practical, realistic part of managing your money is not what I learned. It is not what was taught to me in those degrees that I got. So even though I actually did learn this stuff, it really wasn't the everyday practical stuff that we were taught in school. And so I still even then had to sort of figure out what is going to work best for me, because they can give you sort of an academic approach. They can sort of tell you definitions of things. They can give you the analytical, mathematical calculations for things. But when it comes to thinking about what's going to work best for me, how can I manage my money in a way that I will like and that will be sustainable for me? I'll be able to do it for a very long time. And the idea of what should I be spending my money on? What's most important to me? What is my value system pointing towards? That part, isn't taught in schools. It's not taught in academia and that sort of thing. And so don't let that be sort of a limiting belief of what you're capable in the future, just because maybe the past you didn't learn that kind of stuff. Most people don't. And there is an element that has to be figured out as you sort of go through life of what's going to work for you and what's not going to work for you too.